Hi YouTube, it's Kathy. It's about 20 to midnight on Saturday, which means that in about 20 minutes it will be the Queer Lit Readathon in my time zone, finally. It always seems weird because there's people posting, hey, I can start the Queer Lit Readathon. I'm like, great, I feel like I'm a day behind everybody even though I'm not really. Apologies for the terrible lighting, but you know, we're in the middle of the night, so what you gonna do? I have 9 or 10 books to read this week, which is a lot. However, I have been a little bit strategic in the length of those books, so we'll see what I can do. I think that tonight, before I go to sleep, I'm going to read America Volume 1, which is about America Chavez. It's a graphic novel, it's on my phone, it shouldn't take me too long, so that's good. Other than that, I originally had 2 audiobooks for this week, but I found out that my library has 2 additional books on my TBR as audiobooks, so I will revert to doing that instead of reading the physical books if that's what I have to come down to get this done. Shout out to my local library for having audiobooks so I don't have to choose between getting all my reading done and going outside. I also was very smart and finished all of my reading, watching, and listening early today, being Saturday. Filmed my video for tomorrow already, and that's going to go up first thing in the morning, so that basically frees up about 6 hours of reading time for this week, which is pretty essential considering how much I'm going to try to read. So I'm feeling pretty confident, pretty excited. I think I can do it, but we'll see. This will be my first read just to start things out, and then I'll probably go to sleep because let's be honest, I am a tired lady and old, so yeah. But I will try to read at least 2 things tomorrow, hopefully, the shortest of the things, and then we'll see where we go from there. But, and I know it's weird because I know literally nobody could know if I cheated or not, I'm not gonna start reading until we get to midnight. And then I'm probably gonna pass out, and this is probably my last clip of the night because I'm old. Good morning, it's Sunday. It's about 11 a.m. and I have completed 2 books so far for the readathon. One was America. I read a bunch of it last night, but then I needed to fall asleep, and then I finished it this morning. And then I just listened to the audiobook of Orlando, which is about 2.5 hours, and it was not for me. Not a lot happened, especially considering it took place over 300 years. So I'm gonna have to read some Sparks Notes, maybe track down the movie to get a better understanding of why people love it so much. But in a second I'm going to start reading That Could Be Enough by Alyssa Cole, and I'm very excited for it. Also, sorry, dishwasher's going, shower's going. It's gross outside, so there's no lighting. Yay vlogging. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I've spent some of the morning while listening to the audiobook updating all of the places where I track my reading as to what I'm reading this week. So Goodreads, the Storygraph, Litzy, my own spreadsheet, 50 book pledge. I track it in a lot of places, okay? And some of them I couldn't do before the readathon because, for example, for the Storygraph, if I added them as currently reading before the readathon started, I don't think they would count towards the challenge. I know that this is above and beyond and this is too much, but I enjoy doing it, weirdly enough. Well, hello. Despite the weather and therefore the lighting being garbage, I am having a really great reading day. It's just, I believe, a little less than 3:30 and I've already finished 3 of my 10 reads, which is great. That Could Be Enough was short and sweet and I really liked it, and I love that we got to know the characters even though it is so short. And then I also love that there's kind of a prequel novella to it as well that I could possibly read in the future. And I doubt that one will be queer based on who it's based around, but it just makes me really happy that there's more Alyssa Cole things out there to read because she's lovely. In a few minutes I'm going to draw myself a bath and get into The Summer of Us, which is a physical book that I'm reading this week, and I'm gonna be really excited when I get like about halfway through that one today is what I imagine I'll be able to do, because that just gives me such a good start to the week. And then I'm extra excited because 2 of the books that I picked up physically, I actually bought them specifically for the readathon, are actually available from my library as audiobooks, so I will be able to go out and walk around and do my usual walking route this week while listening to those books and not have to sit and become incredibly unhealthy with my just sitting and reading, and my eyes will probably thank me as well. So it's gonna be a great week. Good morning, it's Monday. I read almost all of Summer of Us last night, and then I read the last 2 chapters first thing this morning before getting out of bed, so I have finished 4 of my proposed 10 books for the week, which feels amazing. Also, when you realize that I now have to read at least 1 book a day to finish all of that this week. Whew. Basically, I read most of my shortest stuff first so that I would feel really ahead, and it works because now I'm very, very motivated to finish out this week, finishing everything I need to read. Next, I'm about to go on my morning walk before work, and I'm going to start Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars. I guess I should tell you a little bit about the Summer Bus because I think my last update was me just starting it. It was lovely. It's 5 friends who have just graduated high school and they're going on a 2-week adventure around Europe, and many feelings and shenanigans ensue. It was a lot of fun and it really makes me miss traveling, and I'm very excited for when I can do that again. Hello, it's a little after 3 in the afternoon and I finished Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars. I really enjoyed it. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I knew it was going to be some fierce, fast-paced, fun weirdness, and I got that, but it's also hard-hitting and there's tons of metaphors and like fantastic elements that were just wonderful to see, and just this spirit of storytelling and who gets to tell you what's true, and then sections of the story where she would be like, this is what happened, and then she'd be like, no wait, it happened like this instead, and completely change the narrative, and it was very interesting and I very, very much enjoyed it. So there's that. That means I'm now going to go on to my 6th book, which is The Miseducation of Cameron Post. This is the longest book on my list. It is almost 500 pages, so wish me luck. Good morning, it's Tuesday. I got 155 pages into The Miseducation of Cameron Post last night before I got sucked into some roommate time where we watched some Malcolm in the Middle and some Jeopardy, and then I went to sleep. That means I'm about a third of the way through. I'm really enjoying it so far. So far we've seen her when she's 12 and now she's about 15. I went into this thinking it was contemporary and it's historical fiction because it starts in 1989, so there's a fact I didn't know about it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying seeing her interact with people outside of this very small town and this mindset, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen with her old best friend. Hello, it's Tuesday evening. I've spent a decent amount of time reading this today. I am probably about 100 pages from the end of it. I think I knew what the big switch up halfway through the book was, but for whatever reason, because the book was just going along, I completely forgot that that's where she would end up. And I'm enjoying, is a weird word for it, but I'm enjoying that it's, one, a terrible place, but not a physically terrible place, because it makes sense that not every single conversion camp somebody could be sent to would be physically terrible. They're still mentally and emotionally terrible. That's 100% true. But I feel like there's been enough stories where it's also been physically terrible and people have been physically abused that it is, again, intriguing or interesting is not the right word, but like it's valuable to see the times where people did go to these types of places and they were just basically overblown Jesus camps, but like people still got through it, if that makes any sense. I hope that makes sense. I'm really hoping, actually, if I have time at the end of the week, to watch this movie, because I know I can get it from my library digitally really easily, so I'm hoping to do that, but I still also want to know what happens in these last 100 pages. Also, it's really interesting to me to look at what I assume is this movie cover and try to figure out exactly who these other characters are, because they could be her friends from her hometown or they could be her friends from conversion camp. And based on him, I'm thinking it's conversion camp, even though I would have thought it was her friends from home, so it's interesting, and I'm gonna have to watch the movie to figure it out. Good morning, it's Wednesday. I'm about to head out for my morning walk, and I'm going to listen to Freshwater, which I haven't started yet, so I'm very excited for that. I'm about 50 pages to the end of Cameron Post, and I'm really enjoying it and just wondering how it's going to end up, considering what the characters want to do right now. And that means even though I didn't finish a book yesterday, I am pretty much on track to finish a book every single day, which means that I should be able to finish my TBR, which is cool. Hello, we're going on a field trip. I just finished Cameron Post, so I'm going to take all my library books back to the library and pick up some other library books, some of which I'm going to hopefully read for the Queer Blackathon, which is coming up in a couple of weekends. And then another book I want to read next week because it's based around a road trip, and I believe it's queer and it's Canadian. And we're going to go up island next week for a couple of days, which is as close to a road trip as we're going to get for a while. Since these clips are off the cuff, I don't think I really represented what I wanted to say about Cameron Post very well the last time I talked to you about it. I was trying to make a point that the way that the conversion camp was depicted was very nuanced, and I really appreciated that. And I don't know if that came out right. I hope it did. We're all human, and sometimes our words fail us. But for now, let's go to the library. I'm going to listen to Freshwater on the way because I can do that in this car. I love technology. Hello, we're gonna do a mini library haul in front of the library, because why not? First, for Queer Blackathon, I have Real Life. The other book that I'm picking up is this book of poetry called The Gospel of Breaking. And then the one that I want to read next week is When You Get the Chance, which, Canadian road trip book, aw yeah. So Chad and I just watched the movie adaptation of Miseducation of Cameron Post, and the book is way better. There's that. There's also the fact that every time Reverend Rick came up, I was just like, oh no, it's just Jim from Newsroom with a ridiculous mustache. No. It made me laugh every time. I couldn't take it serious. That movie was not great. It cut out the first 250 pages off the bat. It did have some great scenes, but they were scenes directly lifted out of the book. Overall, I definitely prefer the book over the movie. It wasn't a bad movie. It also had the problem of, it would have these really long shots, not where anyone was doing anything interesting, it's just they needed to fill time to get to 90 minutes. And you could tell. And you could have done that by not cutting out half the goddamn book. Good morning, it's Thursday. Last night, while I was in the bath, I was both listening to and reading Freshwater, which really helped with this particular book because it's so beautifully written, and yet sometimes I would just not really completely understand what was going on, even though I understood the words on the page. I don't know if that makes sense. This book is too smart for me, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Just before going to bed, I also read the preface in the first chapter of Small Courage, and I'm looking forward to continuing that today. This morning I went for my morning walk, and I was listening to Freshwater again, and then I just finished the last 45 minutes of the audiobook while listening and reading again. And then, of course, I also had tea because I'm chilly. Freshwater is one of those books that is wrapped up in a lot of things that I don't have a lot of previous knowledge on. So I'm sure that there are many things in this that I could read up on, get a bigger understanding of the history of what went into this book, read it again in the future, and then feel it even more deeply. I can also understand why when people talk about this book they don't really describe it, because it is difficult to do so. You could just reduce it to the Western view of this is a character with DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, and that wouldn't be wrong, but it also wouldn't be inclusive of everything else that it actually is. Our main character has faced trauma in her life and has become the vessel for different gods that inhabit her body and are there both to help her handle trauma as well as do what they want with her form. I'm very glad that we picked this for the group book because it is definitely a very interesting read. Good morning, it's Friday. I'm still working my way through Small Courage. I'm most of the way through, just a few more essays to go. And as I make breakfast for myself, I'm about to start listening to Johnny Appleseed, which is my 9th read of the readathon. Hello, it is an update because I've been feeling really tired the last couple of days and I haven't been updating as much as I wanted to. Here we are. I finished Small Courage, really enjoyed it. It is a great memoir, and I was mostly excited to read it because it takes place primarily in Nelson, which is a place I've actually been to, so when she was talking about going to the library, I was like, I've been to that library, so it was exciting for that, and then also just the fact that it was close to me and the subject matter. I also started Johnny Appleseed on audio, and I'm really enjoying it. It's very non-linear, and I feel like that's kind of a running theme with some of my reads this week, but I am very much enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how it gets to where it's going and how it wraps up. I also love that it is super sex positive and super sex work positive, which you do not see enough of. I'm also going to start Bedazzled in just a few minutes, and I think I'm going to be able to get through it pretty quickly because it's contemporary, it's linear, it's going to be about cute, costumey things, so it'll be something that I can speed through pretty easily. So I think I'm going to read 10 books this week, which... what? When I originally started doing weekly wrap-ups, it was because of this channel that no longer exists anymore, unfortunately, where this girl named Kirsty would do these wrap-ups where she would read like 10 books in a week, and I didn't understand how she could do it. And it turns out it is something I can in fact do, but it's not something I could do every week. Good morning, it's Saturday. I've been for my morning walk. I just finished Johnny Appleseed. Really enjoyed this one. Just the mixture of going into his past and his present, and everything to do with how he related to family and clients and the boy that he was secretly loving, not so secretly loving sometimes, everything. I just really enjoyed it. I believe last night I got to about 40% of the way through Bedazzled, so I'm going to finish that today, and then I'm going to have read 10 books this week. I also have a Pride concert to attend online at about 2 o'clock, so I'm very excited to see the double clicks again because they are just lovely. And I did it! I finished Bedazzled, which means I finished 10 books this week, which is a lot. I also watched that concert and it had some amazing acts on it. So if you have the chance, actually, it's going to be up for another week. It was a live stream, but it'll be archived for a week. So if you want to donate to some trans charities, link down below. Honestly, it's totally worth it and it goes to a wonderful cause. The artists were amazing. It was a lot of fun. Now I'm going to go hang out in the backyard with a fire and my roommates, and we're going to have s'mores and we're going to have hot dogs, and it's going to be a wonderful time. Happy Pride, everyone. I hope you had an amazing Queer Lit Readathon. If you want to hear more about these books, I will link the individual episode of my weekly entertainment playlist down below where I talk about this week, which I'm sure is going to be an ordeal because talking about 10 books in one video. Whew. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please give it a like. It really helps me out. Everything else is down below. Go enjoy Pride. Have a good one. Thank you. Burn it. Burn it all.